Hey, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of La Vida Baseball Live. I'm Julie Alexandria here with Jennifer Mercedes, and what better way to usher in this show than celebrating and wishing everyone a very happy International Women's Day here in March. So happy International Women's Day, Jen. Women's Day is every day for us, especially Women in Sports Day. So we're just celebrating here, but nice that people are recognizing it. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yes, happy International Women's Day. And like you said, it is kind of every day for us as we celebrate women in sports every single day with what we do. And today we had to kick Ozzy off because, it's just the girl.
That's right. Ozzy will not be joining this broadcast. He has the day off, but Jen and I will be holding it down in true International Women's Day form. We're going to be talking about some of the issues that truly concern not just women in sport, but women in any professional setting. So, this has changed. The landscape has changed so much. We hear so much more about women working in sports. So we're going to be talking about that and some of the glass ceiling breakers as well. But Jen, let's just start off. First of all, how was your weekend? Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, my weekend was good, short as always. It feels like it flies by. But last night, I think I was doing what most of America was doing, and that was watching Oprah, the Queen, interview Harry and Meghan.
Whew, that's right. Okay, so we're going to get to baseball. We are going to get to baseball, I promise. But let's just talk about we don't want to cover the lead here. I think every single person was watching this, whether you're a baseball fan or not, but Oprah's interview on CBS with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan. I mean, this was, not only was it groundbreaking appointment viewing, it was earth-shattering. I don't even know if that's like selling it too high. Completely.
When we're talking about the story, right? I mean, everything that was said, it was fascinating. I could have watched another 2 hours of that entire interview, and I'm sure that they could have done more because I think that there was clips that we haven't even seen yet. But Oprah Winfrey, will the real queen please stand up? Because she is literally the queen of communications. The way that she maneuvered that entire interview from start to finish, it's like, this is why she is who she is. And from production, I know she was involved in every single part and aspect of this project, and you can see it, right? You can see her handprint all over that entire interview. It's not just her asking the questions, it's the way she does it, it's everything. And I mean, it was wonderful to see from, as a journalist, right? I think we learned so much from her. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I second everything you just said. And I don't know about you, I think it's the same, but I get inquiries in my inbox constantly from up and coming sports journalists and reporters and sideline reporters who are graduating their journalism department in college, or perhaps they're just starting out, and they ask for tips. And they say, what makes you a good interviewer? That would be required viewing, in my opinion, for anyone who wants to break into sports journalism or sports media or any sort of reporting. Watch that interview. I was asked recently on a podcast, Dave Azer's Speechcast, he said, when you're interviewing athletes and you have those tough interviews, and say you have a pitcher who had a terrible outing, how do you approach it? Mm-hmm. How do you approach when you have a sensitive subject? And I think watching this was just a masterclass in how to conduct an interview and how to bring it all together and make it so cohesive, but yet, I mean, technically speaking, if you break it down, it was incredibly masterfully done, but it came off as just a conversation. And at the end of the day, I think that just adds to the watchability of it all.
100% total.
So,
it was wonderful. It was a conversation amongst friends. That's what I felt like. I didn't feel like it was intrusive at all. I just felt like I was listening to them just talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it was truly wonderful. And that's when you think about, I mean, Jen, you interview baseball players all the time. That's what makes a good interview, right? Is when you get to that point and you're just having a conversation with them. And that's what we do here at La Vida. We are storytellers. That's what we're all about. But the night did not go without some major shade that was thrown. Check out this tweet. I love this. There were a lot of tweets. The Twitterverse was going off. I mean, from American Twitter, British Twitter. Everyone had their own opinions. Black Twitter sounding off. It was amazing. But this tweet in particular from Curtis Rogers, shout out to Oprah doing this interview. The only people who could get more out of Harry and Meghan are the Bellevue Rotary Club. Ooh, a burn on many levels. And for those of you who don't get the reference, the Bellevue Rotary Club, that was the club which disgraced Seattle executive Kevin Mather was speaking to when he gave that interview, which ultimately led to him stepping down at the end of February due to his defamatory comments to members of the team. So you gotta love it. But sports wide, obviously, like I mentioned, if you're a sports fan, if you're a player, you may have been watching. Serena Williams was watching. Here's a tweet that she put out showing her basically her support for Meghan, saying that they go back a long way. She says, Meghan Markle, my selfless friend, lives her life and leads by example with empathy and compassion. She teaches me every day what it means to be truly noble. Her words illustrate the pain and the cruelty she's experienced. And she goes on to show her support for the Duchess of Sussex. And
I thought what was interesting, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I thought what was interesting about her statement was how she relates to a racial institution, right? And the tennis world is not far from that. And she knows many of the things that Meghan has experienced. So and they are really good friends, but I appreciated her relatability to the situation.
Absolutely. ESPNW put out a wonderful video. We have it here, showing just the impact. You hear about International Women's Day, you hear about, International Women in Sports Day, but until you see it illustrated, until you see it in your face on the screen, it just sort of shows the breadth and how far the roots reach when it comes to women's impact and contributions in sports. So some familiar faces in there as well.
Always great to see the women in sports highlighted, and I hope that we get to a day when it's not just one day, right? Like I feel like sometimes it's just to do the right thing. I can't wait for the days when women are consistently being celebrated, and women of all colors.
Absolutely. And we talk about the barrier breakers. We talk about Kim Ng, who is making headlines at the beginning of this year as the first baseball GM. I mean, the landscape has definitely changed. You have Bianca Smith. She is the first African-American female MLB coach. You've done interviews, Jen, with Alyssa Nakken as well, the female coach who works with the San Francisco Giants. And I mean, what would you say is the through line when you speak to women in positions of power in sports? What is something that they all sort of rally behind?
What's interesting, and I had this conversation with a group of women who I'm going to be on a panel with on Friday for MLB. I'm going to be moderating a panel, and one of the things that we all agreed on is that there have been so many men who have been instrumental in supporting us and getting us to where we've been, including players and coaches. And had it not been for a lot of them, we would not be where we are because we need them. And I think that when you have more men like that who support women and understand the job that we have and the need for that allyship, I think we will continue to grow. And I think that and I know maybe people don't want to hear that as far as, it's Women's International Day, but we need that support from the men in order to achieve the success that we all want to achieve.
What's changed the most, in your opinion, when you look around, when you arrive physically at the stadium or you attend one of these panels or host one of these panels and you are, quote unquote, in the room where it happens? What to you has changed when it comes to the landscape? Because you and I both started out in the early 2000s. We've come a long way in some ways, in others not so much. Nikki Callaway still has a job. Just putting it out there. So in your opinion, and I understand there's due process there, I understand, but Angels, your move. But at this point, what has changed when you look at the landscape?
Oh, there's more women for sure, 100%. When I started, I would be one of the only women sometimes sitting in the clubhouse or sitting in the dugout. And now we see more women beat writers and more women on camera, not just sideline reporters, right? Like you have more women who are also behind the scenes. I've seen a lot more women camera, doing holding the camera, I'm sorry, camera operators. And I've seen more women on the production side of things as well. And then now we're seeing there are more women at those executive levels. And I think that that's going to continue to grow as time goes on. And that's one of the things that I've definitely seen, especially this year, having been involved in so many panels, is that there have always been women involved. They just haven't been taken into account. And I think that that's one of the things that is definitely going to change. I think that when Sandy Alderson talks about, their hiring process and having more women involved, well, you not only need to have more women involved, you need to educate the men that are already involved in the system. I think that's definitely one of the things that needs to change when we talk about what the Angels have still not done. Due process, of course, but there's a certain time limit, I believe, when we talk about due process, especially when you have all of the evidence in front of you. So it is about continuing to educate those involved. And how do you educate? I think you involve more women. You just need to not be afraid of having the difficult conversations.
Absolutely. Well said. I mean, it has changed a lot. The landscape has changed, and you talk about being one of the only females in the dugout during BP conducting interviews. And I second that. I mean, back in the day when Citi Field first opened, I remember, Jen, it was you and I. We were the only two females there, unless they were doing a nationally televised game, in which case one of the nationally televised television crew would be there, whether it be Erin Andrews or Sam Ryan at the time. But other than that, it was us. And at the time, I mean, you look at the women, there were very few. Think about it. There's only 30 teams, right? So there's 30 jobs for in-game on-field reporters. And some teams don't have in-game on-field, if you want to call them sideline. I don't know sidelines in baseball, but if you want to call them sideline reporters for baseball. So of that, there was maybe 5, a handful of female in-game reporters. And even now, there's not that many. But we do see a lot of these barrier breakers. We see females breaking into, the coaching ranks. We see women breaking into the front office ranks. What do you see as being the next frontier that women are going to be getting into?
Well, when it comes to baseball, I 100% believe that there will be more women GMs and more women actually calling the shots. I think that when you see enterprises, industries that are majority run by women, they end up having more success. I mean, we can talk about that even when we're talking about countries that are run by women. They end up being some of the most economically sound countries in the world, because there is something about women that men, unfortunately, will never possess. And I think part of that is that motherly instinct, which sometimes becomes stereotyped and with thinking that we are maybe too emotional. But I think that there are parts of our just being that makes us better at certain things.
But then, okay, by that rationale, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, in the case of MLB,
yeah,
the argument, and I've heard this from male colleagues, is, well, she's never played Major League Baseball. And they use this argument against Jessica Mendoza, who has gold medals playing softball. Mm-hmm. As a broadcaster, they say, but she's never stepped on a Major League Baseball field as a player. So what does she know about that life, basically? And that's the argument as far as, well, she's never walked in a baseball player's shoes. How can she be making those decisions? What do you say to that argument? Because I know you've heard that.
Yeah, I think that the argument is not a valid one, because we have so many men who have never played a day in Major League Baseball and are still making decisions. We have a lot of men who are analytics, and based on analytics, and maybe they played some high school baseball, maybe even in the minors, but they've never played a day in Major League Baseball. So I don't think it's a valid argument because we have so many of those already involved in baseball making decisions.
That is very true. Not equate to a life in Major League Baseball. But we're also seeing, as we are seeing women break barriers, we're also seeing a difference in the way and progress made in the way in which women's sports is being covered. And this press release came out last week. This is so exciting. There is what's called the Together launch. This is going to be a new media platform that will hopefully change the way women's sports are covered. This was started by Alex Morgan, Sue Bird, Chloe Kim, and Simone Manuel, who they have 8 Olympic gold medals between them. They are professional athletes who basically said, we see a white space in the market. We see a need to give coverage where attention must be paid to young, up-and-coming female athletes, teams, journalists, different sort of the future to cultivate that and to show that and to amplify those voices. So I am so excited for this because they are going to be releasing short films, docuseries, long form interviews with up and comers in the space. And all I want to say is Together Network, please, or Together Media Platform, please cover the UCLA women's gymnastics team, because that is a group of fierce women who are incredible competitors and just put on a show. If you are not familiar with them, they are fantastic. Give them a watch. Every now and then they'll be trending on Twitter. That's how I found out about them. But just a phenomenal group. Jen, do you think that something like this is in the step in the right direction as far as breaking down barriers in the way in which women's sports is covered if we go the non-traditional media?
Of course, and one of the reasons being that women usually get highlighted if there's a really cool highlight, right? And that's it. When in traditional media, if you're talking ESPN's, top 10 plays of the week, for the most part, it's going to be the men's sports, and there may be a sprinkling in of some of the women, but it has to be something tremendous. It's got to be like a Derek Jeter bottom of the ninth type play in order to even be recognized, I believe, in one of those countdowns. So, or just a story. So I think that yes, this is definitely a great start for what it means to cover women in sports. Just like the men are covered, this is going to be that.
Well, you mentioned highlights, so the show would not be complete without a good one. Let's go to the tape. Talk about a bat flip. This one out of Mississippi State from grad student. She was named to first team All SEC. This is Fa Leilua. She's an infield at M State. Watch this bat flip.
Just pure swag.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to some baseball talk. This always makes me laugh, Jen, and I think you will get a good chuckle out of this as well. This article that was written all about Latinos being the future of baseball. But we've known this. The future is now. And I'll just call it out. I think the media has to do a better job of covering the Latin guys and getting the words from them and telling the stories in their own words. That's what we do here at La Vida Baseball. It would be nice to see other media outlets that cover the game, specifically the media outlets that are league owned, amplify those voices.
Yes, when I saw this article, I too got a chuckle out of it because, like you said, the future is now. And we've been saying this, and that's why La Vida Baseball has had the success that we have had. And it's because we know who our stars are. We know that it lies in the young Latino talent, but we've always known that. And I think that the traditional media, right, and white media has always lacked in focusing on who the stars of the game really are. And it's not to say that it is not a multicultural game and there are not multicultural stars, but for the most part, when we're talking about who electrifies the field, I mean, we are talking about Juan Soto, we are talking about Ronald Acuña, we are talking about Tatis Jr. and a number of others who have paved the way for guys like these, right? And yes, it's now, it's not the future. Right now is what we're talking about. These guys are baseball. They are the face of baseball.
Absolutely. And I think they're also is value in explaining the culture. Because if you are a traditionalist, if you want to call it, I know they call themselves self-appointed baseball purists, and they don't like or they don't appreciate Juan Soto at the plate and his antics. They don't appreciate Ronald Acuna Jr. They don't appreciate, if you want to call it the swag, the style. But I think what has been lost is the explanation of culture and the way baseball is played in Latin American countries, that it's not a show of disrespect. It's not about, I'm here to blow up your American pastime, right? This is how we do it where I'm from. And I want to bring that here. And I think that shift in thinking is something that could be exemplified in the media coverage. And it's something that could be a teachable moment, if you want to call that, because so often all of that is thrown into the bucket of disrespect. And you cannot like Trevor Bauer's pitching with one eye closed and not like Juan Soto at the plate. They are not individual.
I would love for a Latin or a Black player to do the same thing that Trevor Bauer did, and I would love to see the side-by-side comments. I am sure that it would be something completely the opposite. I mean, going back to our first conversation when we were talking about Meghan and Harry, we saw the difference in how the media approached Meghan and Prince William's wife, Kate Middleton, when they were doing the same thing, right? And it's all based on race and culture and understanding it. So yes, I agree, Julie. I think that you have to understand the culture. I think that you have to put the time in. You got to put the work in order to understand the culture. I mean, it's 2021. Yeah, the time is ticking for class, right? I think class is almost over, and if you haven't made it, you're going to be lost.
Class started 2 hours ago. Oh, were you late? Okay, so let's go, because speaking of playing with some style, he's legendary, Yadi Molina, who returns again this year in a Cardinals uniform, which we are so happy to see. John Boy does a breakdown. I live for John Boy's breakdowns. They're fantastic. He tweeted this one out yesterday. Yadi Molina tells a runner to steal and then throws him out. No mercy. A breakdown. If you have time, check it out. Really well done. But nice to see Yadi doing Yadi.
I absolutely loved this video. Not only the breakdown, but Yadi literally tempting Siri to steal. Like, really, you're gonna steal? Okay, go. I want you to. And then hanging around to stare him down at the end. Like, you gonna make eye contact now? Make it. Make eye contact with me. I love it. I love Yadi with an attitude. I love it.
I love all baseball players with an attitude. And, just to go back, because I think it's worth noting that, this is the future of baseball. That article about Latino players, it's all about this could be the fun future of baseball. No. It is. We're living it in the future right now. We're living this reality. All of the antics that you see, whether the player is white, Black, Asian, doesn't matter. That's what makes baseball fun right now. So yes, I do hope that is the future of baseball. Those personalities, and I understand traditionally baseball is it's a team sport. You're not supposed to stand out. You are supposed to be one. But I think we have seen a shift, and I like the direction it's going. I don't put down any player for showing their swag, showing their personality and their style, whether they're pitching with one eye or not. I think it's good for the game. All right. Back to International Women's Day. MLB and women have had a storied relationship. If you look back to A League of Their Own, Jen, our favorite movie, when they truly leaned on women during World War II to show up, not just to show up, but to actually play in the games. So Women's Days existed as early as the 1880s. This was news to me. I didn't know it went back that far, but it certainly gained popularity after World War I. We saw they had women coming to games, and what they learned is that women can come to games by themselves. They don't need a chaperone. They can come and enjoy the games. And let's just say we have come a long way from just selling pink jerseys. in the gift shop, right, Jen?
I agree. I think, and one of the things that I found interesting about this story was they initially had come up with the idea of selling to women, of offering, a free ticket. You have to bring somebody with you. And they thought that women would begin to bring their boyfriends. And so that was an added value to them because they would have more men at the ballpark. But little did they know that they had girlfriends who also liked baseball. And the ballpark was filled with women at the ballpark, because we do love sports and we don't need a guy to take. We can take ourselves.
How old were you when you attended your first game, and who brought you?
Oh, the first baseball game that I went to, I believe I was 14 or 15, and it was Yankee Stadium. I was in the old Yankee Stadium, in the upper deck, where you thought you were going to get a nosebleed and then just fall and kill yourself. Yeah, it was like that. My mom and my dad. We ended up we got those tickets for free, and that's who I went with. What about you, Julie?
My first experience, I was 12. My dad took myself and my brother to Dodger Stadium, and we were already living on the West Coast at that time. We had left New York, and some of my friends were like, wait, so you never went to a game at Shea? Because I grew up as a Mets fan in a Mets fan household. And I was too young at the time. And I'm actually glad, because Shea Stadium needed a lot of work, as does Dodger Stadium. But we were up pretty high at Dodger Stadium, not as steep as Yankee Stadium. So luckily I didn't feel like I was going to topple over. But I do remember that game, and it just I think I just sat there eating popcorn the whole time, completely engrossed in just the vast theater of it all. But that was my first experience. And I hope that as we see more women in the sport, I hope that young girls continue to watch. I hope that mothers and fathers and mentors continue to bring young girls to sporting events and continue to expose them, because representation does matter. And when you see someone who looks like you on the TV screen, or when you hear someone on the radio or a podcast or any sort of cast, it makes a difference. And so with International Women's Day, I will say I do think that we are heading in the right direction. Of course, there are those detractors that are underlying, but I do think in the general respect, we are heading in a very positive direction.
I agree, Julie. I think that we are heading in the right direction, and the more we continue to elevate each other, acknowledge each other's accomplishments, I think time will only tell how many more women will come after us.
Yeah, and continue to give women opportunities, and cultivate the talent, because that's truly where it starts. Because it may be a tough ask to say to a front office, hey, just hire a female. No, cultivate that young fan base, cultivate those viewers, and grow the talent, and then have your pick. So with that, this has been our International Women's Day broadcast here on La Vida Baseball. Leave us your comments. Let us know what you think about the show, and let us know where you think this industry is going for women right here on La Vida Baseball. Thanks for watching, everybody.